Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Ryan in Singapore. Welcome to our mindfulness practice. So, today's topic is that shame is not a good or a suitable motivator. Shame is, in fact, a poor motivator. And this kind of goes on the tail of compassion being a good motivator. And we're going to kind of circle around back to that next time. So the next month coming up is going to be about uh, incorporating or reincorporating good habits into our lives. And after that, kind of the converse, right? How do we take bad habits and prune them from our lives? So today we talk about how shame is a poor motivator. And, just starting off, what is it that makes shame a bad motivator? Is that shame attacks identity. So shame has this idea that guilt says that I did something wrong, right? Whereas shame is that I am wrong, that there's something wrong with me, and that's what has made me do this unwanted behavior, or excuse me, or not do behave in a way that I want to behave. So especially as we're talking about developing new habits, sometimes we'll have shame that we didn't do the thing that we wanted to do. And I think uh, I have this example, of course, has shown up in my life, and one of the things that I notice that comes with shame for me, in fact, there's something visceral that happens when I recall a memory that has some shame around it, and that it's not only not only creates some physical sensation in my body, but also kind of makes me want to make some kind of sound, right? As I can actually uncontrollably have like a slight moan as I recall a shameful memory that I really don't even have much control over, that it just happens when a shameful memory shows up. And so this is one of the indicators that lets me know that this has happened. And like something as well, making a mistake last week when I had realized that I scheduled the Thursday's session on Wednesday. That wasn't something that it just happened and it was done. It's something that came back, that memory came back several times. And there was a kind of negative self-talk that came around with that. This is I can't believe you've made this mistake, right? That's one of the self-talk that came with it. And what's interesting is that's something that I know that I've had problems with when it comes to like scheduling in general. I've found that this is something that I have to be more compassionate with myself about, because these are, for some reason, this is the realm of area where I make mistakes. And I think it's helpful to see those realms that we make similar mistakes over and over again. Um, Maybe that's one of the more frustrating things as well, is to see the same mistake, or a mistake in the same realm, being made over and over again. And I think that can really be fuel for shame. That the shame comes because, um, why can't I get it right? Why can't this why can't this realm of my life be more under my control? Why is this mistake continuously happening? And I think that's pretty telling as well. Why can't this be under my control? Because it isn't. And I think that's one of the things that's another reason why shame isn't helpful, because this mistake maybe isn't under our control, and beating ourselves up over it isn't going to open. Beating ourselves up and shaming ourselves causes a kind of closing down rather than an opening up. And so, this is the very first step, that shame attacks our identity. It says there's something wrong with me, and that begins to lead to all of the other issues that shame is creating. Okay, so the second piece here is that shame triggers our stress response. So one thing, so as I was speaking earlier about this visceral feeling that comes with shame, is one of the reasons that visceral feeling may show up for you is because shame is causing that stress response to trigger. So that fight, flight, or freeze response, right? And maybe especially it can be the freeze and the flight response, right? Actually, I guess all of them, right? I tend to want to resist that feeling that I have because I don't feel safe. I think that's one of the things that shame does very well, is it causes us to feel unsafe in the situation that we're in. And just like stress response doesn't have to be to a real physical threat. That the stress response can show up when we experience an imagined stress as well. So when we notice, well, in fact, you don't even have to notice, that stress response comes. And so that's maybe where mindfulness can become more helpful, is to start to see ourselves, judging ourselves, and recognizing that this is not a productive way to create change. That what else is unhelpful about the stress response in regards to change is that when we experience this fight, flight, or freeze response, one thing that you may notice is that we think less clearly during those times. That when the amygdala fires, when we have stress hormones like cortisol in our system, it is harder to think clearly. I mean, when you're angry, for example, you'll notice you're much more likely to think, say, and do things that are less helpful to the situation because of this fight, flight, or freeze. The fight, flight, or freeze main goal is protect myself, right? It's keep myself protected at all costs. And so this prefrontal cortex region of the brain starts to shut down when we're in that mode. Karma says shame is like meditating on how not to support yourself. So shame isn't supportive. It isn't helpful for making positive change. And one other mechanism that shame activates is that it encourages avoidance. So shame encourages avoidance. It makes us, instead of want to openly look at our problem with our non-judgmental awareness, instead of looking and seeing clearly what it makes us want to do, instead is to look in the opposite direction or to look away, to not see it, because shame creates this space of it being too painful for us to examine, right? That, going back to piece 1 with shame attacking identity. Shame says, I am wrong, right? There's something wrong with me. And that is extremely hard for us to look at. It's not something that is comfortable or pleasant. And I guess maybe we feel like that shame is required for change because, it lets us know that there's something's wrong, something we want to change. So using shame as this motivator, what it tends to do, however, is leads us to hiding from ourselves instead of facing ourselves into looking clearly at what it is that is broken. And last but not least, shame's fueling that behavior that we want, maybe fueling the behavior that we want to stop. And so in the time that we find ourselves feeling shame, especially when in the realm of like ceasing a bad habit, right? We may find that it leads to more procrastination around good habits. It may, a bad habit that we may want to stop is fueled by helping with avoidance. So sometimes bad habits help us feel better in the moment that we're feeling shameful. So we're engaging in that habit or procrastinating because of the shame that we feel around it. I don't want to do this because last time I did it wrong and I'm afraid I'm going to do it wrong again. I wasn't able to accomplish my goal. And because I didn't accomplish my goal, I feel shameful and I'm afraid to try it again. So this is the avoidance that comes with procrastination, right? And I think, this is just a good example. The procrastination isn't really about, I think a lot of us think that procrastination is about laziness. Like we or people don't do things or put things off out of laziness. And what it really is fear and harsh judgment on ourselves. So, and that Gene says that works for both self-shame and other shame. And so the antidote or the way to get moving again isn't about shaming ourselves. It is instead self-compassion. And so what is it about self-compassion that works is that one, and I'll paste this into the chat, is that self-compassion creates emotional safety so that we can see our mistakes clearly, so that we have the courage to look towards our mistakes instead of to look away and to say, hey, it's okay. Making mistakes is something that's normal and natural. And it's, as we look at self-compassion, the common humanity aspect, right? Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect all the time. Self-compassion encourages a growth mindset. It proves that we are not a failure, that we remember that slip-ups are just a part of learning, and that sometimes we are going to make mistakes. We're not going to be able to do everything perfectly 100% of the time. And it is part of the process, right? Whatever you're trying to do, it's never going to be perfect. And I think, that's the other thing is as I'm getting back into all of my routines that I know are helpful for me, I'm purposely engaging in that slowly. Not just, one of the things I have noticed as I get back to my physical exercise routine is that my body is having a hard time getting back into it, that I'm feeling sore, that, and so one of the great things about the body is I do have these physical indications. I have these indicators that show me, hey, this is trying, this is difficult on my body, and I can recognize and remember that the same process is happening with my mind as I'm sitting for longer meditations, as I'm trying to get more engaged in my meditation routine and in general, doing things that are helpful for me isn't just trying on the body, it's trying on the mind. So as we re-engage in the habits that are helpful for us, maybe committing to do it slowly so that we're less likely to not meet difficult expectations, so that we can start over the smaller hurdles first and have some encouragement instead of setting the bar extremely high, and then when we fail to do it, maybe that is our default mode. I mean, that's why that we practice self-compassion explicitly, is because maybe it is our default to shame ourselves. Maybe it's so ingrained that we don't have a choice about the matter, that it just happens. And I mean, I can tell you just about that, those visceral things. It's true that when I experience some shameful memory, when I relive a shameful memory, I can't help but have some small moan come out of my voice. It's something this is just how my body is reacting to it and has been conditioned to react to it. So, that is something that is deeply ingrained. So can you use those signals to notice and to go, oh, this is that moment that I'm experiencing shame. Because I know I'm experiencing shame, can I start to replace that with self-compassion? So last but not least, self-compassion works because it fuels sustainable motivation by reminding us we are worth the effort. So in meditation, the mind wanders. If we shame ourselves, we may be less likely to come back and to do the meditation again. You can see this very clearly in the practice. That we go, hey, I'm not doing it. I'm not living up to the standards that I'm setting for myself. That we're less likely to return to the cushion tomorrow. That we associate, right? It's like, it's that association. It's like, why does my cat relieve himself on my sofa sometimes, right? It's because there is that connection with pain that is associated with the litter box, So this is the same kind of thing. If we end up causing ourselves pain in our routines that are helping ourselves, we're going to end up quitting that routine altogether and not doing the thing that's helpful for us. Yeah, and Karma says, being old as a shameful thing, it should be an honorable thing. And I agree with that totally. And we should, take care of our elderly community. That's here in Singapore, it's kind of a given. I think there's, a much more. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get into our meditation. So get comfortable wherever you are. Now, we're going to be exploring today a little bit about what shame has felt like and how to identify it, to know that it's happening, to be able to replace it with self-compassion. So let's start by centering ourselves. So getting comfortable in whatever posture you're choosing today. So I would encourage you to sit up, to find a way to be relaxed yet alert, but also having a compassionate body position, one way that is going to be comfortable for you today, but also allow you to maintain alertness. So hopefully this self-knowledge is going to allow you to choose a posture that's compassionate. As really this practice, that's what I love about meditation, is it's kind of this microcosm of the rest of my life, and I can apply what I learn on the cushion into my daily life. And so rolling the shoulders, moving the head side to side, up and down, whatever is going to help to make the body feel a little bit more comfortable as we get started in our practice today. And tuning into the breathing. What's it feel like to be breathing? So let's purposely begin to elongate the breath a little bit. So breathing a little bit more deeply, so controlling the breath. Seeing if you can really fill up the lungs, stretch out the diaphragm. The bottom of the exhale, pushing the air out of the lungs. Fully inhaling, filling up the lungs. Fully exhaling, letting all of the air out of the lungs. And then releasing control and then letting the natural pace of the breath come back. And seeing if you can focus your attention fully on this feeling of breathing. Fully noticing the feeling of inhaling. Fully noticing the feeling of exhaling. So I encourage you to choose a physical sensation as the anchor, not just the idea of breathing. For me, my go-to place is the space just above my navel. Feeling that region of the abdomen moving as I breathe. If you notice that your mind ever leaves that physical sensation of breath and starts to wander, remember that it's a natural part of the process for the mind to wander. So can you be compassionate to yourself as you gently return the attention to the breath, to this space above the navel, moving outwards as you breathe in, inwards as you breathe out. And so hopefully we've made a little bit of progress in helping the mind slow down just a little bit. So let's just elongate the breath a little bit to help assist that. So using the body to help to calm the mind. So notice the natural inhale. So counting as you inhale. And then as you exhale, see if you can elongate that counting by maybe 2 seconds. So the inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so now, let me invite you to bring into mind a recent slip-up or setback. So something small. Doesn't need to be the biggest thing that you've experienced. Just bring into mind something that has happened that has been less than satisfactory. So just see if you can really recall that. And so what was happening? Where were you? See if you can reimagine the environment you were in. And what was the temperature? What was the sound of the environment? So as best you can, crystallizing that memory of the moment that that setback was realized. And now see if you can recall what were the thoughts that were going through your mind as that setback occurred. In what way did you talk to yourself? And when I say talk to yourself, this meaning more of like, what was the inner monologue that was going on? And now let me ask you, what would it sound like if you were to speak to yourself as a close friend in that moment? What would a close friend say to you if you had explained this minor setback to them? And is it possible for you to think about rephrasing what your close friend may say to you or would say to you in that moment in a way that you could say it to yourself? And now let's see if we can visualize or relive that memory But instead of whatever we had said in that moment, to replace it with this kinder version, this close friend version of the self-talk. And what would that feel like? And now let's go back to the breath. Maybe taking a deeper breath in and then letting go, releasing. One more, a deeper breath in. This time, if you like, you can clench your fists as you breathe in. And then as you breathe out, slowly opening your hands. And coming back to observing the breath in this moment. And so to encourage a more compassionate view, one of the things that we can do is just repeat a few phrases. So if you like, repeat after me. May I be kind to myself. May I be kind to myself. May I have the courage to begin again. May I have the courage to begin again. May I be kind to myself. May I have the courage to learn and to begin again. May I have the courage to learn and to begin again. And so let me invite you to place your right hand across your chest, your left hand across your belly. Maybe without words is another way that you can offer kindness to yourself. Just kind of embracing yourself in this way. May I have the courage to learn and to begin again. May I be kind to myself. May I have the courage to support myself and not shame myself. And so let's spend the next minute or so fully focused on the breath, distilling ourselves once again in the present. And I'll close our practice now with 3 rings of the bell. Thank you. Thanks for practicing with me. Thanks for being here for each other as well. How'd it go today? What did you experience? Was it easy to bring a recent setback into memory? Was it challenging? What emotions came as you tried to do that? Did you find harsh self-judgment, or did you find self-compassion's already there? We've already maybe done some groundwork here. So please feel free to share in the chat. I'll go through this a little bit. Thanks, Cece. Thanks, Jean. And thanks, Siffy. Nice to see you here. And for me, I've just I just used that same one that I talked about, the scheduling error that I had made last week, and remembering it. The moment I remembered it, I was in the swimming pool. I was swimming, and just kind of, not even. It's funny that memories don't always come up as like concrete, words and images. It was just kind of like a brief glimpse of the memory and feelings in my body that came along with it. So in that case, there isn't really a concrete self-talk. It's more of noticing what the feelings in the body were like. So this is another way. Maybe we don't have self-talk directly in those moments. Maybe there's a bodily reaction that we can notice. Linda says, sadness and hurt. Thanks for sharing, Linda. Kathleen says, self-compassion is very foreign to me. Thanks for sharing. And I'll just, I always love to talk about Kristen Neff. Kristen Neff is a researcher at the University of Austin who is kind of the leading researcher in self-compassion. I've noticed she's been posting new tracks on Insight Timer. So you can go check out Kristen's stuff. if you'd like to do some work on self-compassion. Of course, I also have I have a few tracks here. Here's one of them is one of my self-compassion tracks that you can work with. I think it's quite useful to incorporate self-compassion into your regular mindfulness practice, especially if you don't have much experience with it, because learning to have a positive self-talk it can be really helpful, because for most of us, the default is shame, is to have an inner monologue of shame. And so if we practice using self-compassion over and over again, eventually, because we've been practicing doing it, you'll notice the shameful thought, and you'll be able to reinsert the more appropriate, the more helpful way. I mean, that's what today's lesson's about. I mean, this is the helpful way to make change. Like, shaming ourselves is not an effective way for change. It just leads to more of doing the same thing and trying to hide from the feelings and the thoughts of failure, of not meeting what we want to meet. Jean says, it was unpleasant recalling a recent setback, and showing myself compassion and reworking how to approach it makes it easier to approach. Thanks, Jean, for the analogy also. Okay. If you don't follow me on Insight Timer, please do. That's helpful for sure. If today's practice and lesson was helpful, you feel free to donate. That helps me a lot as well. So appreciate you coming in here today and spending your time with me. I'm going to be back in 47 hours and 15 minutes, and this time I mean it. If you look at the next scheduled event, that's when it is. So we're going to be back to talk more about self-compassion. So this lesson was more about why shame doesn't work. We've been spending a little bit of time talking about why and how self-compassion works, but we're going to kind of go back and revisit that and connect it with shame, and why shame doesn't work, why self-compassion does work. So do tune in to that. Thanks, Alexa, for your donation. Thanks, CC, for your donation. And we'll see how self-compassion can help us to make and incorporate positive change into our lives. So let's close our practice with some compassion to ourselves and to some compassion to each other as well, and compassion to the entire world. So follow along with me if you like. I do have the syllabus for the whole semester set up. This is what I'm speaking of good habits and turning over new leaves, that's what I'm going to be trying to do from now on, so that we've got something really concrete. All right. Follow along with me. May I be happy and peaceful. May everyone watching, listening, wherever you are, I wish you all happiness and peace. And may all human beings everywhere, everyone, no matter who they are, may we all be happy and peaceful. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye-bye.